Hello, and welcome to the first podcast of The Wise Way to Success. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Robert Wise. I'm a personal and professional certified coach. I'm the co-founder of Rise Anxiety and Depression Clinic and also my own coaching business, Robert Wise Coaching. Now, this is actually a very special episode, not only because it's my first podcast, but also because I'm going to be sharing with all of you my journey from OCD to CEO. So I hope that you'll learn from this and I will help people who struggle with obsessive compulsive disorder. So I guess the best way to start is to just start. I had obsessive compulsive disorder probably as young as maybe 10 years old. But it was when I was 15 and 16 years old that my obsessive thoughts became so intrusive that I was really unfunctional. So I'll just give you a little bit of a history. Obsessive compulsive disorder is when you have compulsions that you keep feeling you need to do, like washing your hands over and over and over again, because if you don't, you'll get sick. Or checking your car door over and over and over again, because if you don't, someone will steal your car. And these compulsions start to really control your life, the way it controlled mine. It starts with check the stove over and over and over again, because if you don't, there could be a fire. Or do this over and over and over again, because if you don't, you're going to get sick. And once my compulsion started to become, you're going to get sick if you don't do this, or someone you love is going to get sick if you don't do this, I started to become controlled by my compulsions. My compulsions started to rule my everyday life, and it became more and more complex. So I would have to do things a certain amount of times on different days. So on, let's say, November 2nd, I had to do things either 0 times, 2 times, 4 times, 6 times, 8 times, even amount of times, or something bad was going to happen to me. And on odd days, which is like, let's say November 3rd, I'd have to do something either 1 time, 5 times, 7 times, 9 times, or something bad's going to happen to me or somebody I love. That's quite terrifying. I'm 15 years old, I'm in high school, and I got to make sure I am doing something a certain amount of time or I'm in trouble. And I remember having to raise my hand a certain amount of times, or, oh no, I only asked one question. It's an even day. I need to ask another one. And then I have to make sure that I've done it this many times or that many times. And before I knew it, my whole life was being consumed by my compulsions. Very scary. As my compulsions started to grow, they got more dark and more scary. And when I say more dark and more scary, is that my mind started to go to places that just scared me. Well, Rob, you've never done this. You've never done that. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Like, what am I going to do? I'm scared. Like it tells me, well, you never jumped out of a window before. It's an odd day. That'd be the first time you did that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm scared. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So I had to keep fighting that compulsion. And I was so terrified. I remember going to my guidance counselor. I was 16 years old, and I went to my guidance counselor, and she said, what can I do for you? And I said to her, you could take me to the hospital. I was so petrified by my thoughts and my compulsions that I just didn't know what to do. Now, I want to talk a little bit about OCD and why it is so hard to fight and so hard to not give into it. Because there's a hit attached to the compulsion. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So, you leave your house, you lock your door. Your thought says, check the door, make sure it's locked. Okay, I'll check the door, make sure it's locked. So I do that. I check the door, I make sure it's locked. And then I get the hit, which is the, whew. Okay, good. I check the door, it's locked. I feel good. Okay, the thought says now, check it again. So what do? I check it again. And then the compulsion says, whew, you checked it again, it's locked, you're good. Then it says, you know what? Go back in and check that stove too. So before I know it, I'm getting relieved by checking everything, but I'm also consumed by checking everything over and over and over and over and over again. And the release and the relief that comes from that is addicting. Who's not addicted to a sigh of relief? The, oh, good, that's done. Checked it. I'm okay. I'm good. So let's go back to me being in my guidance counselor's office, and she says, "What can I do for you?" I said, "You could take me to the hospital," and she did. This was 1996. I just want to be very clear. This was about a long time ago, in the mid-90s. And I'm taken to the hospital. She takes me by taxi. And the first thing is I am greeted by a bunch of doctors and I guess psychiatrists and a security guard. Yes, a security guard as well. And I said to them, "Yeah, I'm scared of doing this to myself and I'm getting this thought." And they say, "What voices are you hearing?" And I'm like, no, they're not voices. They're thoughts. I'm having these thoughts of they're just scaring me. Well, what do these voices sound like? Well, they're my thoughts. They're not voices. Where are they coming from? And before I knew it, this is a true story, and this is why I don't talk about it often, they're telling me I cannot leave. Actually, when I refused to leave, the security guard took me. And I was actually, yes, this is true, tied up. I was taken into a room and they tied me up. They were worried about what I was going to do to myself and maybe what I was going to do to them because of my thoughts, and I was tied up. This is a horrific experience. I'm 16 years old. I have these scary thoughts, and now I'm being tied up in a hospital. What is going on here? What's happening? So eventually they do untie me and they put me into therapy, and I am living in this hospital for months, going through treatment, going through all these things, and they're not understanding. I'm having scary thoughts. I'm not a danger to myself or anybody else. They're just thoughts. But yet they took this as, yeah, you need to be in lockdown because you need help. Which I understand, I guess, but it wasn't helping my OCD. They put me on Prozac. They've put me on all types of pills. And, I had to do all these activities every day with these people, like cook, clean, movie night. How is this going to help my compulsions? Please tell me. So in time, they did let me out. They did release me after a lot of therapy and a lot of time in a confined space. And I did have a roommate. She was really nice. But I did not get the help that I needed at the hospital. Actually, it was the experience at the hospital that made me realize that if I want to overcome these obsessive compulsive thoughts, I'm going to have to do them myself. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I could not live with these compulsive thoughts. And I knew that the only person that really had that power to get rid of these thoughts was actually me. And in that process of being hospitalized and being, in this type of environment in which I was not getting the help I needed and people did not understand what I was going through, I had to figure it out. And what I figured out was very simple. Not easy to do, but very simple in theory. The way out of these compulsions is to not give in to them. That was the way out of them. Scary because there's a consequence attached to each compulsion, and if I don't do it, I'm in trouble. So I waited. Not long, for one of my compulsive thoughts to come into my mind, of course, scare me, threaten me. I'll give you exactly what happened because I think it's important. I was working at a grocery store in the early thousands, and I still had my OCD even after I left the hospital, so I was about 17 years old. And I was working at this grocery store years later in my early 20s. And I remember I was working at the photo lab. This was back in the day when people brought in their cameras to have them developed. And so they would come in to bring the camera for us to develop, and we put it into an envelope with their name and all their details. So it was about 12 o'clock p.m. and I was starving and I wanted to go for lunch. My thought said, Rob, you have all these envelopes that you need to enter into this book. Do it now or you'll be fired. That was the exact thought I had. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give in to it. If I get fired, I get fired. It was the first conscious time I was defiant. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So guess what happened? The OCD is very tricky. The compulsion and the thoughts associated with it got more vicious. You are going to enter all the information in the book. You are going to do it now, or you are going to get sick. And I said to myself, then I get sick. And that was the moment when I felt I had my power back. I defied the bully within myself telling me, if you don't do this, you will get sick. You will lose your job. Well, you know what? Then I will get sick. Then I will lose my job. I will not give in to these compulsions and these thoughts anymore. And it was at that moment, as scary as it was, that I felt free. Scared, but free. And I will be very honest, I have never given in to a compulsion since then, and this goes back a long time ago. Although I will get a thought here and there, like, Rob, do this, or that will happen, I don't give in to that thought, and they rarely ever do happen. My point for telling you all this is that anybody there that's struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder knows how scary it is, and how vicious the compulsions and the thoughts can get. And you do not have to give in to those thoughts. As difficult and challenging as it is, the first step, in my opinion, to actual recovery is not being complicit. It's like not giving in to the bully that says, give me that $5 or I'll beat you up. You know what? Beat me up. I'm not going to give you that $5 because, like that bully, it's going to come back for more money and more and more and more until I say stop. So now if I check my car once, it's good enough. I checked it once. If it tells me check it again, no, I already checked it. So now as a CEO and reflecting as of my days of OCD, that 16-year-old is still within me. That boy who cried out to the social worker, the guidance counselor for help is still there. And now I want to use my story to help people overcome compulsive thoughts and overcome that fear. What if I don't give into this? What will happen to me? And you know what? I want my freedom. I want peace. I want peace. I don't want consequences. I want peace. So I want to thank you for listening to my story. This 16-year-old inside me wants to thank you for listening to this story. And if you just start with one defiant behavior towards the OCD, you're good to go. What I mean by that is you get a thought, don't give in to it. I know it's tempting. I know you want that hit. You want to feel that relief. I get it. Don't give in to it. Your peace of mind is more important than the consequence it's going to give you. And you know what? It's not true. It's just a thought. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. If you don't do it, doesn't mean anything will happen. Your peace of mind is much more important than that. So thank you so much for tuning in to this first episode. It's a really special one as I shared my story from my heart to all of you. I want to wish you all a very wise day. Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.